was more happy when school had finally come to an end. He never understood how the dolls managed to continue their regular education for a whole 12 grades. Yes. Hello. I am really excited about this one. I've been waiting to read this one for a long time. Yeah, so I'm finally going to read it today. All right, and this is from Ethan, and I will put his Instagram in the description. It's not published yet. It's still a draft. But yeah, we'll see if I can give him a few tips. The man hoisted his bag onto his back and made his way to the door. He looked over his shoulder one last time at his wife and toddler son. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving them, but what choice does one have after being drafted to fight a war? His hand gripped the doorknob. His knuckles were whitened. Liam, his wife said. Her voice cracked as if she was holding back enough tears to flood the entire room. The man she called Liam released the handle from his grasp and turned to face her. Her hair was a tangled mess of gold and brown. Her eyes were swollen and red-rimmed, not their usual cheerful brown. They matched his exactly. As for his son, he merely believed his father to be leaving on a business trip as usual. The boy, Maxwell, was oblivious to the dreadful reality of the situation. Audra, he breathed. She rushed to her husband for one last embrace. He held her with such strength that he feared he might break her, but she didn't seem to mind. In fact, she returned the fierceness. Maxwell rushes over to join his parents in their loving arms. I love you, he whispered, both of you. Liam bent down to speak to his son, the way his father used to do when he was a boy. Be good to your mother, boy. Don't give her any trouble while I'm away, promise? I promise, Daddy, the small child said. His voice was full of life and love. There was no heartbreak in it, no tears being forced back. At least, not yet. Ah, that was the prologue. All right. It's good. That's nice. I'm gonna just do my notes on the prologue before I go to chapter 1. I like this. I like this. I like this little prologue thing. I kind of have a thing like against prologues. And we'll see what chapter 1 looks like. But yeah, but it was good. It was very well done. It was a well done prologue. And I know you were all like he was so worried, oh, it's just a draft. I kept trying to make last minute edits, and I'm like, it'll be fine. And it's good. It's good. There's a couple, you just have a couple really minor things. There's not, you need a space between at least and you reuse a word. You reuse the word son twice, one in the first sentence and then one in the second sentence. But yeah, and the little the man she called Liam, just say Liam. That was a little bit awkward, but I mean, really, I'm just being super nitpicky. This was good. You should be proud of this. You should be proud of this, Ethan. Just throwing that out there. All right, so chapter 1. And I'm sorry if I'm not saying this lady's name right. Audra? Audria? Audria. I'm going to say Audria. Okay. Max! Audria shouted from her front porch. There was no reply. Maxwell Fussell! Where are you? Again, she was answered only by silence. She felt a lurch in her chest. He told her he would be in the barn, but he should have heard her calling out for him. She made her way across the yard. The grass crunched under her feet. The crisp fall breeze nipped at her bare feet and cut through her morning gown. The barn door was wide open, which struck her as odd. Max always locked up after himself. Something felt very wrong. She crossed the threshold of the brown wooden barn. It took a few moments for her eyes to adjust to the dim light inside. The only light she saw came from a single oil lantern that sat on a desk on the other side of the wall. It used to be Liam's desk, where he made all of his crazy and usually dangerous inventions. Now it belongs to Max, and he has adopted his father's old hobby for himself. "Maxie, are you in here?" she called out again. She made her way over to the workshop table and noticed a small silver trinket. It was on top of a blueprint plan for a new mode of transportation. She stared intently at it for what seemed like minutes. "What's this?" She reached for the item to examine it more closely. "Hey, Mama," said Max. Audrey jumped and startled out of her skin. "My goodness, Max, you nearly gave me a heart attack." "Sorry, I was just upstairs going through some old parts. Did you need something?" "Oh, yes. I came to tell you that breakfast will be ready soon. That and Waylon stopped by," she said, suddenly remembering. "He said he has something special for you? For your eyes only," he said. She rolled her eyes at the last part. "Yes, ma'am. I'll be up in a few. I just need to finish a few more things," he replied, excitement hidden in his voice. Whenever Waylon said he had something for him, it usually meant new weapons, or even better, new blueprints. Audrey studied her son as he turned back to her and sat down at his table. He looked remarkably like his father. He had his father's messy brown hair, intelligent and curious green eyes, and the same sun-kissed skin. The only difference was the round birthmark he wore on the right side of his face, just along his jawline. She always told him that birthmarks were where someone had been kissed by an angel. Others believed it was a mark signifying how one died in a past life. Audrey found herself sitting at the lunch table with her son later that day. They ate in silence most of the time. Max had not been much of a conversationalist ever since his father passed away. The details of his death had not been specific. All they received was an unmarked letter to inform them, and a package with his family ring inside. The fact that his ring had been separated from him was more than enough proof for them both. "Kinda early for a visit from Waylon, don't you think?" he said, picking at his bread. He was on his way to town to open up shop," she said. "He said he was hoping you would be up. I guess he didn't have time to wait. He seems to be in a rush." They continued their meal, Max focused on the little bit of mashed potatoes he had left, Audrey examining the room around them. Not much had changed over the years. The walls were still their usual ivory white. The floorboards were slightly uneven from years of wear and tear, and miscellaneous items still cluttered the counters in all the rooms. "You should go see what he has for you. You haven't been out of the house in nearly 2 weeks," she said. She looked lovingly upon her son. "What are you talking about? I go to the barn every day." He laughed at this. She gave him a reproachful look, and then let out a chuckle. "You know what I mean, smart bun. You're 16 years old and spend all of your time cooped up and shut out from the world. When's the last time you went out and spent time with a friend?" she asked thoughtfully. It was always something that had concerned her. She worried that he would never make any friends, but in reality, he never had any interest in social interactions. Max found most people distracting from his work. Waylon was one of the few exceptions. Okay, I'm going to see Waylon now. Happy?" he said as he jumped up from his spot at the table. "Oh, and do we need anything from town while I'm there?" "Yes, I am." She paused for a moment. "And no, we don't. Have fun and be safe. I love you, Maxie." He groaned at being called Maxie. He had not enjoyed being called that since he was 9 years old, although despite all of his protests, she continued to use the pet name. "I love you too," he said, and quickly kissed her on the top of the head, grabbed his coat, and made his way for Waylon's shop. The center of the town was only 13 minutes from his house by foot. It was only 5 if you had a car. His mother had never been able to afford a vehicle, but it didn't faze them much. They could transport all they needed with the bikes they owned. Fitzgerald was a small, quiet town lost in the middle of Georgia. Not many people came in it, and even fewer left. And even fewer ever left. He looked around at the mundane people leading their ordinary lives, each unaware of the secret world living right under their noses. A world of magic and mystery. the unseen, but it's not spelled like unseen. It's the unseen. Max's interest had never been piqued at the thought of these things, though. He was more concerned with protecting himself and his mother from the dangers of his world. Instead, he found himself standing in front of a small workshop. The name Wayland was spelled out in big, bold letters above the front door. A doll, a doll, as they called normal people where he came from, would look upon the same spot and see nothing at all. If they attempted to walk towards it, they would simply come out the other side, unaware that they had been portaled. "Maxwell," boomed Wayland. His voice was a deep rumble, almost like thunder. He moved from behind his counter and took off his apron, tossing it into a chair. It swallowed the seat whole. Wayland had a figure to match his voice. At first glance, one would assume he was part giant, and on many occasions people have. "I was hoping that you'd be able to stop by." He crossed over to a table in the far corner. On it was a wide assortment of tools, glass jars filled with liquids, and a scattered stack of papers. "Hey, Way," said Max. He was amused, as always, by his frisky behavior. "Mama said you stopped by looking for me." Nah," he said, shaking his head. His shaggy red hair and long, scuffy beard shook with it. "Not looking for ya, informing ya. I need to give you something. Something real important." He dug through the mess on his desk before moving on to search in a large wooden trunk on the floor. "Aha!" he exclaimed. "Here you are, you little devil." Max chuckled quietly to himself as wrestled to get a sheet of paper from the bottom of the trunk. He had always been something in between a father and an older brother to Max. He stood up straight, clutching the large sheet of paper. Max recognized it instantly as blueprints. But blueprints for what, exactly? "This here's blueprints for something real nice. I bet you're gonna love it," said Wayland. He was excited as a young kid who was about to show his parents his new painting. "Oh, yeah? What's the occasion?" said Max, stepping over to look what he was holding. "I felt bad for not being able to get you anything for your birthday the other week, so I figured this ought to make up for it." He held up the prints to show him. Max's eyes flew open, and his jaw dropped. This had to be some sort of trick. There was no way he was actually giving him something of this magnitude. "These can't be real, Way," said Max, dumbfounded. He took the prints from Wayland to examine them closer. Everything seemed legit, but he couldn't fathom what was happening. "Oh, they're real, all right. Them's their blueprints for a portal." He tapped the edge of the paper and beamed with pride. "And not just any portal, but one that can travel with ya. But they're still a work in progress, so I figured you could work out the bugs." Max sat down in the closest chair he could find. This was amazing and insane. The typical projects included surveillance cameras or perimeter sensors. This was next level technology, though. "I've got one finished, but like I said, it's just a prototype. It works, but it's still got bugs in it," said Wayland. Max didn't even know what to say. He took the prototype and hugged Wayland. Tears of joy burned the back of his eyes, but he didn't dare let them flow. That would be way too embarrassing. "Thanks, Way. This is the best gift you ever could have gotten me." He stepped back and took a deep breath. Wayland couldn't stop beaming. He loved making Max happy. There wasn't anything in the world he wouldn't do for him. "You're welcome, buddy." "Well, I guess I need to get back to Mama. I told her I wouldn't be more than a couple hours." He broke free from his embrace and put the blueprints in his bag along with the prototype. "I'll be sure to get out of the shop more often and come to see you." "Bye, little buddy. See you later," he called after him as Max left the room. Not wanting to test out his new toy quite just yet, Max decided to walk back home. He figured he'd better run a few tests to make sure it's safe before trying it on himself. Wayland did say it had a few bugs in it. This was always a characteristic his mother had loved about him. It made him more honest. Even at school, he would never take answers from anyone else simply because he felt they may have overlooked something minute. He was more happy when school had finally come to an end. He never understood how the dolls managed to continue their regular education for a whole 12 grades. Yes. In the unseen world, 10 years of school was considered plenty. Any higher education was dealt with by academies that were specifically designed for individual careers. He finally rounded the corner that and his house. There's a couple little minor errors. I'm not going to dwell on them. He finally rounded the corner that and his house came into view. It wasn't much of a sight. It was a small house with tan vinyl siding all around. The roof was covered with black shingles, and there was a blue tarp covering part of the roof from where it was damaged from a recent storm. They hadn't been in a rush to fix it since it was doing no damage. However, something seemed a bit off about his home. The yard appeared normal, a few pine trees here and there, branches and pine straw strewn everywhere. The flowers his mother had planted were withering in front of the porch. But he still had this uneasy feeling in his gut. As he crossed by the pond and to the front porch, he noticed that the door was left wide open. His mother's bike was still there, so he knew she must be home. He found it rather odd that there were no lights inside, especially since it was beginning to turn dark out. "Mama," he called out. He drew closer to the door and felt a chill rush by. It was as if the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in a matter of moments. Soon it was cold enough that he could see his breath. "Mama, this isn't funny. Why is it so cold?" His mother had never been one to play jokes. He didn't know why she would start now. Maybe she was trying to get back at him for scaring her early this morning. Before he could realize what was going on, he was on his back with the breath knocked out of him. He struggled to an upright position and heard a cold, hard voice speak. "So glad you could finally join us. I've been dying to meet your brother." Yes, I like this one. This is a good one. I like this one. This is good. Yes. Yes. Very nice. Obviously, you've got a couple just tiny little just misplaced words or words that aren't actually the right word that you meant to put there. But I mean, it's just a first draft, and it's already really good. Other than the couple little minor spelling things, I think. Remember I said how I had kind of a thing. I didn't like prologues very much. Well, your prologue, it was fine. It was a good prologue for a prologue. I just don't really like prologues. Personally, if it was me, I would cut the prologue because you don't need it. Just because you don't need it. And then I would start, you kind of have a little bit of a slow start. It's just Max, and they're just talking, and it's there's no reason for us to really care about this. I like the tension, in the first couple sentences, but it really should be in the first sentence. Maybe if you can, put that tension in the first sentence, because just saying Max, Adri shouted from her front porch, there was no reply. I guess it's okay. It's quick enough. It's quick enough to get into the thing, so that's good. But you could maybe even skip a little farther in if you want to start it just a little bit farther in. Maybe just get a little bit quicker to where the action starts happening. But then again, I like your description. So you can do anything you want. You can do whatever way. And I really like how you talk about his father. Because, you already know something happened. That's why I don't really think you need your prologue. Because you already know something happened. Just say, it used to be Liam's desk, where he made all his crazy and usually dangerous invention. So now it belongs to Max, and he has adopted his father's old hobby for himself. Those two sentences are really good. I don't know if you fathom like how much those two sentences like tell us. Like it tells us that, well, one, like Max is like his father. His father is dead and gone. And it tells you that Max is like his father. It tells you that it's been probably a while. And I mean, it tells you what Liam is like and what Max is like in the same sense. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, but that's really good. And I don't think you really need anything else. Like, you don't need to say Liam died. We know he's dead. Like, that's it. Like, we know he's dead. Like, I don't think you need to really go into that as much as you did. It was kind of a little awkward, like, placed in there. Like, that little exposition. Like, the little backstory is fine, but you don't need it. You don't need it in there. Like, we already know. We know, we got the little hint about his dad, and his dad isn't important, like, right in the next chapter that I just read. So, at least, like, we don't know he's important. Yeah, so you don't really need to really address that as much as you did. And yeah, another really strong point was your dialogue. Like, I could feel everyone talking differently. Like, I knew, like, in my head, like, at least I felt like I knew this is how Max talked, and Max talked differently than his mother, and his mother definitely talked really differently from that other guy. And I got a really good sense of, like, their personalities and who they were. It was just really good, like, all around. Like, it was really good. Like, again, just, like, a couple, like, tiny, minor, little, itty-bitty spelling things. And you're really good to go. Like, seriously. Like, it's good. And, you know, I don't really like the prologue. I don't think you need it. I think you can just jump right into the story, and I think that's far more efficient and more interesting. It's not that your prologue is bad, it's not the most efficient way to start a story. And I will be releasing, I made a video about that. I made a video talking about how I think you should structure your first chapters and everything. And I think you're good. I think it's pretty good. Oh, one more thing. In the beginning, I thought it was just gonna be a normal story. Like, you didn't give me any hint of magic. Does that make sense? I thought it was all just going to be normal. Like, they were, I'm not normal, but I mean, I didn't know there was going to be magic involved. And kind of the first thing was at the shop, and then all of a sudden it was normal for there to be magic. And then I was like, oh, it's normal for there to be magic, okay. Maybe if you could mention maybe something like, when you describe his desk, like the papers on his desk, or like right when his mother like comes into the barn, maybe you could mention something on the desk, like there was some portal thing or some talk about something magic-y, just to establish that, yeah, there's magic in this world, because it wasn't clear, and it kind of was like a shock. It was like, oh, there's magic. We've got some Harry Potter muggle stuff going on. I liked your name. I like dolls. Dolls, yes. 12 years of school. You nailed it. That was funny. That was good. I wanted to stop reading and just like comment on like the yes, but yeah. That's about it. I really liked it. I just got such a good sense. Such good visuals and of the characters, and they're all so different, and they all look so different, and they all feel really different. So you did a good job. Great. Good job. If you guys want to hear me read more stuff like this, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you want me to read your stuff, I have a writing Discord, which is really super cool. And The link is in the description and also on my YouTube channel page. So yeah, you should totally join, and then you can submit stuff to me and I'll read it. And hopefully I'll say it's amazing. Well, I think all writing pretty much is good. I think there's something good in every person's writing. I think there's something good. Anyways, see you soon.